Welcome to another guest. Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversations. We have special guest Brian Goodspeed. Welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you on, man. You have a very interesting tech journey. You mind giving us a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, sure, man. Very humble beginnings. I've kind of been infatuated with tech since I was a little kid, man. I don't want to really talk about, show my age, but man, I was around when the internet first came out. Probably about 5, 6 years old, man. And when we used to get the little AOL CDs in the mail, the free trial, man. And I
Yeah.
couldn't wait for those things to come through, man, to get my chance to get on the internet. But that's kind of where it started at. Give me 1 second. But yeah, that's kind of where it started at. But went from that to getting on to trying to do MySpace and kind of decking out my page, man, with HTML. And, went from that to building websites and kind of doing it freelance, for family members and people, friends and things like that. Then going from that to actually pursuing a career, in software development. Originally started out trying to pursue game and simulation programming. That's what I got my degree in, but I actually ended up going on my professional journey in web development and mobile development.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you find out about the boot camp, or was it a school?
It actually was school. I went to school online. I originally started college at Jarvis Christian College, and then there was supposed to be a dual degree program where I would start at Jarvis Christian College, and then my next 2 years would be at UTA Arlington, and then I would end up getting 2 degrees from each school, but they would both be bachelors. But life happened, man, and kind of took a different route. Ended up having to pursue, take care of my family and things like that. So I didn't actually get a chance to finish that degree program. Fast forward to about 2009, man, and you know what? It's kind of weird how I came about it, but it was a recruiting call that kind of stemmed from me filling out an online survey about my interest in software engineering and so forth and so on. And they called me one day, and I just decided, right then and there to go back to school. I was kind of, on a path that I just wasn't happy with my, financial situation. Nor was I, feeling fulfilled, as a man, to be honest. Like here, I got this family, I got kids, got a wife, and I just didn't feel like I was being the best provider for them. So that was part of my decision making process at that moment. And I decided to go back to school, went to DeVry online, and got my gaming simulation programming degree. That I finished that in 2013, and I went from that to getting my first gig about 6 months after I graduated. So about September 2013 was the beginning of my professional career in software engineering.
Well, you know what's interesting that you mentioned? I see a lot of people going through it. They may want to get into the industry, but something kind of deters them for a short while. Like what made you want to come back to it and really pursue this?
Like I said, man, I've always had my roots in a love for technology. I'm also an artist, and so software development was kind of my outlet to be able to combine those two things that I was very passionate about, art and technology. I feel like every time I open up a code editor, man, that's my canvas, and I'm allowed to express myself in both building solutions and something that's visually and aesthetically pleasing. So when I'm able to see the results of my actions, man, and my work, man, it just does something for me, man. That's a passion that I have. And so at the moment that I decided to, pursue that professionally, it was two-phased. I've always wanted that, but I was almost at a point where I was like, I have to do it, not just for me, but for my family.
Yeah, I was in a similar position. My other jobs, they didn't really pay enough. There was no real upwards progression. So it's like when your back is against the wall, you have to do what you have to do to make it. I know, like coming out of school, was it easy to find that development job, or how did you go about that?
Oh no, definitely wasn't easy because obviously the whole time I'm going to school online, I'm also juggling a job, raising my family, and so forth and so on. So uh, I didn't have any direction when I first, graduated. And although the quote unquote advertise that they help you find a position, that was definitely not the case. So it was just a matter of me just, filling out applications, looking at the job market. And you got to remember back in 2013, like the tech space wasn't as hot as it is right now. Like, I mean, it's a lot easier to find jobs now because the tech space has grown so vastly. But in those times, man, it was tough. And definitely from a financial standpoint as well. To be honest, I think I actually ended up taking a pay cut in my first job. Like, I mean, I wasn't making a bunch of money, but I did have to take a pay cut to get my first opportunity in the tech space.
Yeah, that's something that I mentioned to a lot of people. Like your first 2 years, you kind of look at them as sacrifice years. You're not necessarily going to get that salary you want, but just getting that experience on your resume, that's what pays
Right.
off later. Are there any like tips or tactics you can give somebody that's looking for their first job and they're really finding it difficult?
I think like right now, having a LinkedIn presence is very important. I think also marketing yourself in personal projects and things like that. Just putting the name out there for yourself and just showing and showcasing what your skill set is very important. We live in a very social media centric society right now, and everybody can kind of get a clear view of what image of yourself that you want to portray. And so if you're looking for your first opportunity, you're looking for that first jolt into the industry, the best way you can do that is by showcasing yourself and your skills.
Absolutely. How important are portfolio projects when it comes to standing out from the crowd?
I think they're very important actually because I feel like that's what's going to separate you from the next guy, or the next girl. Like when I first got my first gig in my real gig, not the very first one, but the one that I felt like catapulted me in my career. I had a project that I was working on, and I showcased that during my interview. And I also had that the link to that in my resume. And I'm not sure, how much that helped, but I felt like it didn't hurt because what that does is it allows them to not only show your ability to create a project, but again, you can kind of put your own spin on what you're able to bring to the company.
Right, exactly. Do you remember anything from the interview process of that first real job? Like what kind of questions they asked you and what were they looking for?
As a matter of fact, it was consult more, man. When we met,
Yeah.
I just remember, man, going in there, sitting in front of three guys, and there was a whiteboard up there. They asked me a few questions, and then they had me to pretty much scaffold out a quick little program, on the board, a little bit of JavaScript, to basically solve whatever problem that they presented to me verbally. And I studied hard, prior to that interview because I just wanted to be really sharp, on my Angular because I was back when Angular first came out.
Yeah.
And it was, it was an infant. As a matter of fact, Angular 2 was just coming out. It was still in RC to be exact. But I don't know, man. It was just knowing the basics of Angular really was all that was required. But I felt like that I used that opportunity to kind of showcase my own personal skills and how I would approach something instead of going in there with the basics. So I don't think they really do that anymore. I haven't gone through that process in any other interview thereafter, but I think at that moment, though, it allowed me to really showcase what I could do, regardless of what kind of degree I had or what the case may be.
Was there anything in particular you did on the interview that you believe kind of made you stand out from some of the other guys they may have interviewed?
I think it's just my confidence. You know, being well versed at something or being a quote unquote expert is really just knowing more than the next person or knowing more than what the person that you're talking to knows. And I feel like that kind of speaks volumes. I think people want to see that you're confident in what you're able to do. And I feel like that's kind of where I shine in a lot of my career endeavors. Like I go into a room and I command, you know, respect and I command attention because you're gonna recognize me.
Exactly. So like once you walked in the doors on the first day, how are you feeling, and did you have like any ideas of how you're gonna approach this job?
To be honest, man, I was just happy to have a job because I had gone through a layoff, which I think a lot of people in the tech industry has experienced that at some point or another. Just like the current, you know, the big companies right now, Google, Meta, you know, Apple. A lot of people are laying off, but that's just kind of part of the beast. But just as much as people are laying off, you have a lot of other people that are, you know, startups and just other companies that are growing and need more people in the tech space. So at that time, I just came off a layoff. And so I was happy to have an opportunity that made me feel like I wasn't in a associates or a starter role. Like I felt like it was my first junior role, like my real role. So I don't know. I didn't have any expectations, to be honest with, but I mean, I just took it on, man. Like I said, I didn't feel any type of way. I wasn't scared, you know, or anything, because my confidence was leading. I just knew I was gonna come in here and make a difference.
Was there anything you did to develop your confidence, or was that something that naturally came to you? And for somebody who's low confidence, how can they step that confidence game up a little bit?
I mean, I think confidence just comes from, as far as I'm concerned, just knowing what I know. Like if you know how to make a sandwich, right? Like, and you know that your sandwich is good, you will be very confident to teach somebody else how to make that same sandwich or present that sandwich to somebody else because that's just something that you feel solid in. And I think that goes for anything that you do. Like, you just have to know that what you're doing is valuable and great. And I've never second guessed myself. I've never thought, oh, I might not be good enough, or no, that might not be what they're looking for. No, I am what they're looking for. And what I have to offer is valuable. And that's just, I don't think it's something that I was taught. That's just innately part of my personality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not saying that you can't learn confidence, but confidence really is just a mindset.
Yep. So, you know, you mentioned that, you know, technical skills are obviously very important, but do you feel like the soft skills, like being able to talk to people, did that play a role in you really, solidifying yourself in the company?
Yeah. Communication is key. And I mean, that's really what all this is. Like, everything is based off communication. Even what we're doing right here, right now. Even when you're breaking it down to a technical level, code is communication. And being able to communicate effectively can take you to places I feel like poor communication can't. Like, a lot of people, you know, stereotype coders and people in the tech field as antisocial and, you know, ineffective communicators. But I beg to differ. I I think that there's a big space for effective communication and being social in the tech space. And I do feel like that's a big component that I bring to the table.
Right. And you know, you ended up being one of the key players in that company, especially on the front end. What were some of the things that really made you stand out and made them want to pick you as the, you know, like the go-to guy?
Well, to be honest, I mean, it was only me when it first started. I mean, we had one other guy, but he was more of a back end guy. I was the first real front end guy to come on to that project. And even in my infancy in my career, I think again, my level of expertise at that moment, because I was self-driven. I learned a lot of things like doing my own personal projects, things like that. So when I came into that position, I was the expert. Even though I'd only been in the industry for a couple of years, like I quickly became a senior engineer in that project. So it was kind of like the perfect storm.
Right. And, you know, especially being able to work with an emerging technology, it kind of puts you, you know, on even playing ground with guys who may have had 5 or 7 years of experience, but in a completely different technology.
Exactly. So that's another reason why I feel like the tech space is so valuable, is because if you position yourself properly and you continue to groom yourself in your own personal projects and things like that, and just stay ahead of the curve, that might position you in a place where you can actually be an expert in a new technology, where somebody who's been in the industry for, 10 years, you could come in ahead of them because you know something that they don't. Because one thing that I do find challenging, especially in the professional tech space, is getting stuck in a particular technology and not being able to kind of move with the fast pace of how, technology advances. So, you might be at a company for 5, 6, years, and you're doing the same thing that entire time frame, while the outside world is, going at a, alarming rate. So you hit the market again, and all of a sudden, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great point that you mentioned. Like utilizing learning the new technology. That's kind of how a junior can compete against some of these teams if they're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
And you're learning a new technology. You can say, I'm an expert in this technology, whereas, they're doing something else. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, most definitely, man.
But, great things don't last forever. So your time at that company came to an end. So can you tell us, like, what was the process of getting back on the market and having the interview again? Like, how did that make you feel? And,
So, like I said, we had time there together. And, you moved on to other things as well. For me, again, man, it's always like a wake-up call. Nobody, looks forward to getting laid off or look forward to having to be pushed back into the market. I think the most comfortable position to be in is to go into the market knowing that that's something that you want to do versus feeling like you have to do it. And in that moment, yes, I had to get back into the market. And it wasn't easy because, again, you're in this particular position, you've been working with this particular technology, and maybe the jobs that you're looking for, aren't prevalent at that moment. Like when I first got with Console More, Angular was the hot thing. By the time, we were back in the market, React became, the hot thing. But I hadn't been using React. So now that limits my opportunities because I wasn't grooming myself and I wasn't, continuing to advance myself, again, getting stuck in what technology I was working with day to day. But as usual, I rose to the challenge. I put myself out there. I used my my expertise that I did learn, not just in the technology, but actually being a senior, developer to other developers. And that kind of helped me leverage myself into a lead role.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of the dangers that a lot of people don't talk about in the tech space. Like you have to constantly be learning and developing your network because there is a lot of instability, and you can easily get shoehorned into a legacy technology position. So, like you mentioned, you had to keep learning, and you know, you had to be ready for whenever a layoff occurred. But like you did come into this new role as a lead developer. Can you explain like how that felt? Like what are some of the new things that you had to do that you weren't doing, that you didn't have to do at your previous job?
To be honest, I feel like I've always just been a lead. I've always had a lead mentality. Um, I mean, you can even speak, for, say yourself, like when we worked together, uh, I was more in a grooming position. Like I was available to answer questions, to co-program, to, do mini code reviews prior to you submitting it, giving you new techniques, so forth, so on. And not just, you, but also, some of our other colleagues as well. Again, I just kind of naturally fall into that space. So when I had the opportunity to actually have the title, I was already ready for it. It didn't feel a lot different. Now, obviously, there was other things that I didn't have to do prior, which is like things like, performance reviews, kind of like more of the HR type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, though, man, me being in that role was very natural for me.
Right. So like what were some of the strategies you took to really give your developers confidence and to really get them on the right track and ready to be a contributor?
I think one of the key skills of a good leader is being able to read individuals. Everybody doesn't respond the same way to, the same type of leadership. Understanding where a person's strengths lie, and then promoting those strengths at the same time, encouraging, developing their weaker areas is really, it's almost like an art. And I just have a knack for that, it's kind of like, it's almost like parenting too.
Yeah.
And I got kids, and, each one of my children are different, and I treat them differently in their own spaces. So where one of them might have to be a lot more stern, a lot more hard, the other one I might be a little bit more lax, just because of their different, personalities and their different, again, strengths and weaknesses. It's the same thing in development. Everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses, and being able to, again, hone in on those strengths and allow them to be confident in that area, which will lead them to be more open and available to kind of nurse those weaker areas.
Right. Yep. So like, can you give the audience like some strategies if say they want to go from junior developer to senior and then eventually from senior to something like a team lead?
So to be honest, like going from junior to senior is just a matter of being, let me think, the best way to put it, I don't think there's much difference between the junior and the senior except your workload and your ability to work independently. Like, I think you kind of take more ownership of a project. You're that go-to person, and just being available to other developers in times where they don't understand something, or let's say you have somebody new that gets onboarded, and you're that guy that has the most knowledge and experience in that particular project. It kind of catapults you into a senior role. And the job will recognize you as such. So it's different for different, companies. I don't think it's the same across the board. But if I had to give a strategy, going from junior to senior is owning a project. Like, take this project on and learn it inside and out, and not just what you're supposed to do in this particular task, but the whole entirety of the project. Become an expert at that particular project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I kind of mentioned to developers like they shouldn't be taking a back seat because at Consult More we worked together and I was really quiet back then and when they would ask for opinions and stuff I wouldn't really speak up. I didn't really say much, whereas you were a lot more vocal and that kind of made you stand out a lot more over me. So I think it is very important, like you mentioned, to own a project and to make yourself visible.
Yeah, indeed. And in doing that, the company will see you as more of a higher power in that role. Like, okay, this person is actually, taking initiative, putting, their stamp on this project. So they don't just see you as just somebody that's doing what they're told. You're somebody that's innovating. You're somebody that's pushing the project to the next level. That might also translate into the next project.
Exactly. And you know, you're spot on with that. So like if you were pitching yourself to a new company, man, for a lead role, what would you say that really makes you stand out? Like I just kind of want the audience to be able to see like this is what a lead looks like.
I think it's a combination of things. Obviously, to be able to lead, you have to have some level of expertise. You have some level of knowledge that's beyond the normal or basis level. So learning your craft, honing your skills, that's very important. But then you get to a point where your technical ability doesn't dictate whether you're a lead or not. Because I've seen leads who may not be as technologically advanced as some of their senior or junior developers, but they have something else that helps like promote efficiency and effectiveness in a project. So pulling out the best in a person, or in this case, a developer, is really what separates, a senior developer from a lead developer. So I think some people think that it's all about tech,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. You have to at some point embrace people. So get away from the codes and the X's and O's and actually start learning people and how to communicate and how to encourage and how to build people.
Absolutely. And, like you mentioned, people is very important. One of the mistakes I made early on at that first job was like, even my dress code, like I would just come in to work, like wearing like sweatpants and, like a wife beater and like looking like I was about to play basketball or something. And,
right.
We was in the Bank of America building and I would be on the elevator with a lawyer or something. Cause, they had like several different companies in that building. They're probably what is this guy doing here? Like, does he belong? So
I think this guy's lost, man.
Yeah. So the next job I started dressing better, and I know you really took dressing seriously when you went to that next position, and it really made you stand out. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, man. I think that also comes with the confidence thing. Because when you look good, you feel good, and you're gonna present your best self. Sometimes you're not gonna feel like getting all dressed up and sharp and everything, but for the most part, people will look at you differently based off of how you present yourself. So when I took on this lead role, and I don't feel like I was doing it because I was a lead. I just felt like the atmosphere that I was in, the environment that I was in, I felt great and I wanted to look great. And so, people used to say, comments all the time like, man, you're making us look bad. Or man, you always look good, man. You always look sharp. And I wasn't doing it for that type of response. I was doing it for myself. But it started to dawn on me that it put me in a different echelon. Like people start interacting with me differently. They respect me at a different level. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you simply can do a quick experiment to verify this, like go in the mall with a wife beater on and sweatpants on and walk around in Macy's or Dillard's and see how you get treated versus maybe something a little more upscale like a blazer. You're going to get two completely different experiences just from something as simple as what you put on your body.
Exactly.
So yeah, we've been getting a lot of comments, man. Square Mo says, I've been in a situation where a junior dev was a better leader than a senior dev because of two things. The junior dev made sure to understand coworker skill sets and guided them with needed info, whereas the senior just had the roster mindset. And two, the senior believed pair programming was a waste of time for other devs or the company. Made me view the senior dev as not senior in certain aspects.
Yeah, because some companies, you'll actually become a senior just because you've been there a long enough time. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a groomer or that you're a leader. It just means that you have tenure. You just have rapport, or seniority, for the lack of better words. And I think when you first think about getting into this industry, that's what you feel like. That's what I thought. I like, it would take this amount of time for me to get from this level to that level because everything was time-based. But that's definitely not the case. You can literally walk into your first opportunity, and if you're skilled enough and you show that skill level, you can come in as a junior. And you can get on as a junior and then really exert yourself and really own a project and be a senior in 6 months.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not really time-based. It's about your what you're actually doing and how you're impacting, the company, how you're impacting that project. And I think that if we come in looking at it from a standpoint of, it's not about junior, senior, whatever. It's really about what am I bringing to the table for this particular project or this particular company.
Absolutely. And Lonnie Johnson mentioned pair programming is very important.
Indeed, we did a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think pair programming allows not only the I'm gonna use junior senior. Let's just say you're pair programming a senior and a junior. Not only does it allow the senior to present the information or present these tactics or whatever they're trying to learn in that moment, it allows them to present that in a more consumable way. But it also allows, it's kind of like OJT, like on the job training. I can see you do what you do in the way that you do it. So that junior kind of gets a new insight. So then they can take what they learn and then start applying that in their own, workflow. So it is very important because just telling somebody what the answer is completely different than showing them how you come to that answer.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, guys, we want to open the floor up to some questions. So if you have some questions, just type them in the comments and we're going to get Brian's opinion on that. But yeah, I know outside of coding, me personally, I find it's important to kind of think about multiple streams of income, not to be completely reliant on just one aspect, because, this industry is kind of unstable at times. So what are your thoughts on entrepreneurship and looking for alternative opportunities?
I know entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, but I do feel like that growing yourself financially outside of just your 9 to 5 is very important. However you choose to do that, whether that be investing, whether that be entrepreneurship, where you're creating a business, whether it be stocks, bonds, whatever. I think it's very important to explore financial options beyond just your career, because obviously financial freedom is what I believe to be the ultimate goal in every body's mind. Like, who doesn't want to be financially free?
Absolutely.
But I think that it's a notion that people really lose insight on because they just assume that that's going to happen over time. And that's just not the case. You have to be intentional.
Yeah.
So for me, I take on, entrepreneurship because I have that type of mindset. So, in addition to investing, when you start, making 6 figures, when you come into the tech industry, that's definitely a massive shift in your mindset and your financial capacity. So being able to leverage that into more, financial income or whatever the case may be is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a question from Lonnie Johnson. How important is Lead Code HackerRank for junior devs?
Well, I'll say it like this. If you feel like one of those type of sites will push your skill level to the next level, it's super important. Because as I mentioned before, your expertise is what drives your position in any particular company or project. Your value is in your expertise. So if you feel like, lead code or hacker rank, and again, not even just for a junior, just for anybody in the tech industry, if you think that that'll push you to the next level because you're lacking in a particular area, whether it be, algorithms or, machine learning or whatever the case may be, hey, I said go for it, especially if you have aspirations to really grow in the industry.
Yeah, great answer. I know a lot of people that have like a lot of stuff going on, a lot of life situations, and they find it hard to find time to study outside of work. What do you recommend they do to be able to, get their study in?
Dedication to a particular time set. Set a time, and I know it sounds difficult, but it's really not. When you really think about how much time we waste in a day, there is time. It could be 30 minutes, an hour, whatever that time frame is, but you have to be intentional about whatever it is that you're doing. So if you want to grow in your industry, it has to be important enough to you that you're willing to sacrifice time. So it may mean, watching less, of your shows. It may mean putting the phone down and not scrolling through social media for, 30 minutes or so. It might mean missing out on, going out for a drink with the friends or, whatever the case may be. I think people feel like if they make sacrifices in this way, that it's so detrimental to their lifestyle. But I really don't believe that that's the case, because I feel like everybody at some point wastes time. Recapture that time and repurpose it for your advancement in your career.
Absolutely. And I kind of like to piggyback off of that. Like, when you're doing things like driving to work, you have this huge time period where you could be playing an audio book or, something related to the industry, a programming podcast. Like Brian mentioned, we all have like segments of time that we can spend learning, but we often forego that, and, just wasting time on stuff that's so-called entertaining. Like you have to be intentional about your learning and making progress.
Yeah. I just noticed what Squared Mo said. Just want to chime in on that real quick. So here's the thing. Yeah, you will learn at your job, but the problem with learning at your job is that it's going to be confined within whatever it is that your responsibilities are at that job. So for example, I've worked in Angular pretty much my entire professional career. I would never learn anything outside of that at my job. But if I hit the market again and Angular isn't the hot thing, I've handicapped myself because now I'm not prepared for what's hot and new in the in the industry now. So yes, I do understand that you can learn at your job, but that's only if your job is allowing you to learn what is prevalent to you and where your growth, is aimed. So that's why I said it just depends on whether or not you feel like whatever you're going to learn in these other things outside of your job will push you further in your expertise to be able to take on new opportunities. Because you might want to go from junior to senior, but that might not happen at your job. It might happen at another job. And that's almost like the most popular way to move up in this industry is to move companies. That's when you're going to get your biggest pay increases, and that's when you're going to get your next position increase.
So yeah,
more often than not.
Speaking on that, let's talk about negotiation strategies. I know that simply getting the job isn't all there is to it. You get what you negotiate for. So just by knowing the right negotiation tactic, that could actually be a 30, 40K increase, a 30, 40K increase in doing the same job just by knowing how to work the interview process. So for example, you don't just take one interview at a time. You're interviewing with multiple companies. and kind of having them compete over your services. Can you speak on negotiation during the interview process?
Well, I think the negotiation process starts way before you get into the interview.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know what your worth is. You have to know what your value is. And you go into it, there's really, it's not nothing to negotiate. Like if you want a particular amount and you feel like that's what you're worth, then hold fast on that. Like if you go in and you want, that number, go in there with that number in mind and don't take anything less. Now, I would also say, you can kind of do a range, right? You don't ever have to go in with all your cards on the table because you don't want to miss an opportunity over 5K, right? But you have to understand where you actually are, not just in this industry, but for this particular company. Like what are they looking for? And do you, meet or exceed that role?
So, like, how would somebody really find their worth? Like, how would they do the research to determine a good number for them to?
To be honest, just looking out at the, postings. You can type in your position or the position that you're looking for, and see what people are offering for that particular position. That's how I've gotten raises in my, current companies over my entire career. Like somebody else, whether it be a recruiter or something like that, fishing for me and, hey, we're offering this. I'm like, oh, y'all offering what? That's way more than I make over here. Like, hold on. I didn't know they were paying people this much. Now, obviously, the company that you work for and what their, resources are, every company can't afford to pay the same amount for the same position. But that may be the reason that you need to move, because this company can't afford me no more.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten to the point where I'm worth this. This company can't afford that, so I need to go to a company that can.
Right. And something that's really interesting is here's my personal advice as well. Never accept the first number that gets thrown out, and never be in a position where you're negotiating in a position of desperation, because that's when the companies will lowball you. When I'm not looking for a job and the recruiter says, hey, will you accept, 150 or something? Nah, I'm good. Then they somehow magically, like 10 minutes later, a lot of times they come back, oh yeah, actually we can offer 165. Like, just,
I mean, everybody's looking for a deal.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you go shopping, you don't just go out and just say, oh, I don't care, money's no object. I'm just gonna, buy whatever for whatever price. You're gonna do your research. You're gonna try to get the lowest price. So I'm not mad at the companies for trying to get what they can get for whatever price they're trying to get it for. However, that's where your value and your worth comes into play. I saw TH right here saying when applying, and the recruiter asked me what my target salary is, what is the best answer to give in that situation? Should I give a number or should I say something else? You give a number, that's fine, but give a range. So you have, let's say, for example, you're thinking 120. Well, if you're solid on that, it's okay to say, hey, I need at least 120. Or you can say, hey, I need at least, I'm looking for 125, 130. Go a little bit above what you actually want, because you never know. They might give you that. But you don't want to be too crazy. Like if you know you're good with 120 and they don't have any, postings that show what that amount is, don't go like, oh, I'm looking for 150. You got to also know what's reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes, and also, if you negotiate too high of a salary and you get it, you're putting a lot more pressure on yourself. And, sometimes a company be quicker to cut you because you're the guy making 180K when they feel like, okay, we can get somebody similar to do it for 150K. Because, at my current job, when they brought me in, they let go of the previous team because, they kind of cost too much. So, that's an interesting point. Like, you want to negotiate a good rate, but you don't want to be so high that, any little thing they're waiting to cut you.
Yeah. Or it's just way outside the bounds of what's reasonable for that position at that company. So again, it's kind of like if you're buying a car, right? You know, and they say make your best offer.
Yeah.
Well, first thing you're gonna do is go see how much that car is worth, right? Okay, well, I know that based off of Kelley Blue Book, you know, it should be valued around this amount. Then you start looking at some of the other intricate details about it that might fluctuate the price. You know, are there aftermarket parts on it? Da, 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 da. A job is the same way. They might have other benefits that make up for, you know, some of that salary. So it's like, well, they're only offering 110, but they give unlimited vacation. Or they're only offering 110, but they, you know, full remote, you know. So you have to kind of, again, know the position, know your worth, know your value, and go in understanding what is reasonable.
Exactly. And you know, like we just have to realize negotiation is just part of the game. And if you don't know how to negotiate, you're not going to get what you're worth. Like you mentioned, the car dealership analogy. If you just go to the lot, see this car, look at the sticker price, hey, give me that, I'll pay that. You know, you're gonna kind of get screwed over. You got to kind of, you know, like you mentioned, do your research, see what people are actually able to get these vehicles for, and you have to be willing to walk at times. Like, I'm gonna go check out a price at this other dealership, and you know, sometimes the salesman say, hey, wait, we can actually go lower.
Yeah, indeed. And to touch on what Squared Mo said, I've done that like 3 or 4 times in my career. Actually having another job offer and taking that, you know, to my company, and then they match that, or you know, renegotiate, you know, my salary or my benefits, you know, and I can stay where I'm at, which is really what most people really would like to do. If I could stay where I'm at, because you know, you build rapport at a company, you know, you get, you know, comfortable with the people, you know, you like where you're at. Yeah, if your company can match what another company is offering, yeah, that's definitely a great way to advance in your career as well.
Absolutely. So, man, this might sound controversial, but what do you think about the opinion that sometimes you don't always need to go higher in a company because there's a lot more responsibilities and work that comes with it? You know, mentally we always want to go higher and higher, but what if the next level requires such a time commitment that it's not necessarily worth the extra 30 or 40K? So like, okay, you get a higher title, but it's 20 hours more work. What do you think about that?
I think that that's something that each individual would have to, you know, evaluate. What, you know, it might be more hours, but it might not be as stressful. So where you might be putting in more hours, you might only be doing more meetings or something like that, instead of more coding or more responsibility in that way. So it just depends on what it is. For me, I mean, to be honest, man, in my experience, it's unfortunate, but it's almost like the higher you go, the less work you have to do.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that. Yeah, you might be responsible for more, but you don't actually do more, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So it's just, and some people just don't want the responsibility.
Yeah.
It's too stressful. You know, it's just not what they want. They want to just, you know, they want to like code or, you know, whatever, QA, or, you know, what they want to just stay there, and that's fine. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Exactly. Yeah. It comes down to knowing yourself and what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And sometimes I was looking at what Square Mo said just put in the extra hours the next role will bring and study for the next job hop. That could, you know, be valuable if that's your desire. But yeah, doing what I call a side step. So like, let's say I'm a senior engineer. I love coding. That's all I want to do. But I want to move up, like whether it be in my pay scale or whatever. Yes, that may require me to do a job hop or, you know, a company shift. Because again, you might be tapped out at the top of your pay scale at this particular company. But I think at some point people just get complacent. Like, I'm happy. You know, I don't need to go up. I don't need, and if that's you, that's fine. Everybody is not meant to climb the ladder. And if your lifestyle is fulfilling and you're happy, there's no need to put a lot of pressure on yourself to try to get to the next level if you're completely content and happy and fulfilled at your current position.
Absolutely. That's all the questions I can think off the top of my head, man. Did you have any thing you want to bring up, Brian?
Man, I just feel like the tech space is not glorified enough as it should be. I feel like that the tech space has a lot of places to grow. It offers one of the most lucrative opportunities for the least amount of experience. I mean, literally anybody can just pick it up and go. And I feel like, you know, if anybody has ever, you know, thought about getting into something or taking on a career path, the tech space is definitely something that I feel like is a I don't want to just push the lucrative part, but I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, that's what most people work for. It's for financial gain. And so if you can do that, you know, at a base level, just out the gate, take about, you know, 2 to 6 months out of your life to invest in yourself and build a career from nothing and go from wherever you're at to 6 figures plus and beyond from there, I think it's worth it, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, what do you feel about like kind of like knowing the right person? Because as Squared Mo mentioned, I was introduced to this from a friend and he taught me via Discord.
Nice. Yeah, you can learn it from anywhere, man. I mean, whether it be from another person, a tutorial, or you teaching yourself through books, or you know, whatever the case may be. Lonnie just asks, how would you prepare for an Angular role as a junior dev? I would start out with the code camps that Google actually offers code camps, and they're free. You know, you can go and learn Angular, get the basics under your belt. Because again, in this industry, it's not about, you know, what you have; it's about what you know. Like you can contest to that, Kevin.
Yeah.
Like when you came into Console More, you didn't have a degree in software engineering or nothing like that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, if you're trying to, you know, take on an Angular role, go and build a project, you know, in Angular from scratch and do something that you feel, you know, very connected to, very passionate about. And once you do that, I would feel very strongly at putting that on my resume, because any questions that they might ask you, you know, you can say, hey, yeah, I know this, I know that, I know this, I know that. I'm an expert.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think another good thing is, you know, go on LinkedIn and just start reading people who know that particular technology you're looking to get better at and start asking them questions. You know, oftentimes we imagine that people are going to give us a different response than what they're actually going to give. A lot of people are actually open to helping you out. So you just got to reach out and say, hey, I got a few questions for you. You know what I mean? And you know something else. I feel like more junior developers, they need to congregate amongst each other and talk to each other and work on projects together, because you know at least you'll have an accountability partner, you know, somebody to bounce ideas off of. Like be proactive, be aggressive.
Yep, I agree.
But yeah, man. Anybody else had any more questions? Okay. Yeah, it looks like everybody asked all their questions, man. Do you got any closing thoughts?
You know, like I said, just to recap, man, I just want to encourage everybody to, you know, take, and even if it's not in tech, you know, hey, take your career and your financial stability into your own hands, and just get out there, man. Present yourself, be confident, and take the world on. Like that, you know, something that I've done. So I'm not just, you know, saying anything. Like I've done this. I've came from nothing, you know, and I've created a very lucrative career in this tech space. And I mean, the sky's the limit, man.
Absolutely. So Square Mode.
Square Mode just asked a question.
Mm-hmm. May I share tuition-free boot camp for viewers?
You have like a link or something?
Yeah, man. Yeah, feel free to share. But yeah, okay, we could pivot to one more subject, man. You know, me and you, both African American. I'm half black, half Korean. You're full black. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot of us in a tech space. You know, one thing neither of us did was allow that to limit us. So, you know, do you mind speaking on your experiences in tech as a black man and your mentality to continually make that progress?
I'm going to be completely transparent, man. I never think about that.
Yeah.
I literally don't. When I go into a space, a company, you know, whatever in this industry, me being black is the last thing I think about. I know that I'm valuable as a person.
Exactly.
I do know that exists. I know that there's not a lot of representation for African Americans, you know, or even women in the tech space. And being part of one of those minorities in this industry, I really don't see it limiting me. Because again, I'm confident and I just lead with what I know. And when I present myself, it's nothing that can stop me. I just don't see it any other way. What about you?
Exactly, man. You know, we're all humans at the end of the day. Just because somebody doesn't look exactly like you doesn't mean that you can't learn from all the other humans at your organization. Like, you know, you can learn exact things somebody who's another race can learn, and use that for your success. Like, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, like, even if society has put you in a certain position in a certain box, you don't have to stay in that box. You know what I mean? Like, we may feel like, hey, we're disadvantaged because, you know, we don't have the opportunities other, you know, people have. But, you know, the internet is a great equalizer. There's so much free material. There's so many people you can reach out to. It's kind of like, you know, you put an octopus in a box or a jar. It's not going to stay there. It's going to find a way to open up that box or uncap the jar, and it's going to get back to the ocean where it belongs. So, you know, whatever's in your way, you got to have a mentality of, I'm going to find a way to get there, and I'm going to navigate around or through whatever's standing in my path.
Yeah. And just to kind of touch on what Square Mo just said, I don't think that the lack of representation in this industry is due to the lack of opportunity. I just think it's the lack of knowledge. I don't think that the tech space is a very glamorous, you know, industry, and let's just be honest, people of color are just not attracted to it. I think most of the people of color that are in the tech space just have a natural affinity for it, like, or they've been introduced to it, or they saw the financial, you know, gain, you know, that they could have by pursuing it. But for somebody like me, I've always been attracted to tech. I've always been, you know, and it doesn't have anything to do with me being a person of color. It's just me and my personality and what my desires are. So with that being said, yes, there is a lack of representation, but I think that it's also a lack of awareness. So that's one of my goals, you know, in the near future, is to raise awareness of the tech industry, and hopefully my outreach will bring awareness, especially in the Black community.
Yeah, I agree. You know, representation definitely matters, but if it's not there, somebody has to step up and be that leader. You know what I mean? Like, just because I didn't necessarily see a bunch of Black technologists doesn't mean that I should limit myself. I need to be the one that gets myself in a position so that others can look up and say, okay, he did it, so maybe I can do it too. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's definitely more, I guess, inviting to see, or be in a comfortable place. I just happen to be, unique in that way that I don't look at it like that, but everybody's not like that, and I know that that's challenging for a lot of people. Like, it makes it easier to, do something when you feel like somebody that's like you is doing it too. Lonnie just asked about ChatGPT. I haven't used it personally yet, but I have done a lot of research on it. And I think it's definitely hot right now. And I think that there's definitely a lot of, for the lack of better words, there's a lot of opportunity, especially now with it being, fresh on the scene, and that's the hot new, search term right now in tech industry. And people are finding ways to leverage it in many different unique and very lucrative ways. So I definitely think it's going to be here and be an asset to a lot of, the tech space in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't personally used it, but I watch videos on it. I've seen some of the incredible things that AI have produced. It kind of reminds me of when Amazon and all of these big tech giants eventually formed, and we knew they were going to be big because what they were doing kind of transformed society. Like, before, you always had to go to the store, but Amazon now brought products to you, especially stuff that you couldn't get locally. Now you had access to. I feel like Chat GPT is kind of transformative in that regards, in that it's going to change the way we search for information, the way we quickly produce assets. You know what I mean? And if you think about it, it's just essentially a higher level programming language, except one that's more human. Like, if you think back in the initial days of computing, they use stuff like punch cards and machine language, ones and zeros, assembly, really lower level languages to communicate with the computer. And then came C, C++, slightly higher level and more human oriented, than JavaScript, even more human oriented. Now you have Chat GPT, where you're using English language or whatever human language to communicate, to get the computer to do what you want it to do. So it's a skill that people are going to have to eventually develop.
Yeah, I think AI is definitely the future of the tech space, and it might actually affect us in ways deeper than we actually know. Because I mean, at some point, you got to think that if AI can do what ChatGPT can do, then at what point can AI just build programs by itself? You don't need coders anymore. So I think the AI space is actually, the future.
Yeah, people are going to have to deal with it whether they like it or not. Like, we're already dealing with AI in several regards. We just don't necessarily see it, like, for example, like even with LinkedIn searches, when recruiters look for your resume, I'm sure AI scans a bunch of different candidates first, and recommends those that have a higher match of the criteria being looked for. So we're already dealing with AI. Now we just, the everyday person has more of an opportunity to interact and utilize it for themselves.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
But yeah, guys, did y'all have any more questions or any subject y'all wanted us to cover? Yeah, Brian. In the meanwhile, can you tell us, like, what are your plans for the more immediate future? Where do you see yourself?
To be honest, man, I want to rebuild my passion in my career. I want to get back in tune with the new technology and frameworks and things that are going on in this space. And I just I want to grow again.
Yeah.
So I see myself in the near future, you know, advancing not only in my career, but also like kind of building a social outlet to kind of, again, raise awareness to this industry, to make it, you know, for the lack of better words, make it more sexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We appreciate you, Squared Mo.
yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing. Square Mo and Lonnie Johnson, and everybody else was watching. But yeah, to piggyback off of your point, man, coder apathy is a real thing. Like when you've been in the industry for so long and it feels like you're kind of doing the same thing and being stagnant, your desire to really progress, it can kind of wane. So finding something that reignites your passion for coding, I think that's something that everybody has to deal with eventually.
Yeah, indeed.
What's really getting you back into the field again, like really interested in coding?
I think it's a combination of things. Um, there's some outside influences. I'm not gonna, elude that fact. Um, I find myself, kind of reinventing myself, um, and I lost, I lost sight of what my core, drive is, and what my passion is. And to be honest, man, I miss it, man. Those days where I was, doing my own personal projects and, constantly, feeding my brain and constantly advancing, my knowledge in this industry. Uh, I just lost it for some reason, man. Whether it be just being mundane at my, current position, or, just life or whatever. Things happen, man. But I got a wake up call, man. And the things that I feel like I'm meant to do, I want to get back to doing it, and being more ingrained and more versed in my industry is going to be part of that process.
Absolutely, man. I think that's a great note to close on, man. We definitely want to have you back. This was a great chat. Had a ton of audience interaction. You imparted a lot of wisdom and knowledge, man. Where can everybody find you at? And are they free to connect?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. There's Brian Goodspeed. You can connect with me there. I'm going to soon be launching some more social presence with that, bringing awareness to the tech industry. We can look forward to that. Maybe next time I get on, I'll have that in place. I can put that out there too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.